And we're live from Studio B on this gorgeous Friday in San Francisco. Sounds like it's nice. A lot of different places around the world. Mark Holland, happy Friday to the Fosies. John Emmett, good evening all. Andy Cox in Bermuda. Emmett's in the UK. Clayton Embley's towing a thistle today and trying not to fall asleep. Well, don't fall asleep while you're driving, so we're going to keep you company.
Yes.
Christopher and Jane Gillingham. Time to decommission. Yeah, John Emmett's report is about winterizing in Weymouth. Welcome to all of you for show number 781 on this Friday, the 8th of November, at the end of election week here in the States with, I suppose, global implications. We're not going to talk about the election, are we, Julia?
No. Heard enough.
We're just happy that it's behind us. As Pumbaa said, put the past behind you.
Yes.
Whether you're happy or otherwise. David Price, Christian and Pricey say good morning from an overcast but promising day in Sydney. Hello to everybody around the world. Thanks for joining us. Julie, what are we celebrating today?
Well, if it's Jody, it's got to be beer.
It's got to be alcohol related. It is Shot Day.
Oh, Shot Day.
You see that?
Yeah.
It's on your monitor.
Yeah.
It's Shot Day. Apparently, it's a world celebration of the shot glass. We don't even have a shot glass here in the Beach Street Yacht Club. Tiny glasses of liquid dynamite. They pack a punch in a small package, igniting the night with a fiery burst of fun. There are many types of glassware in the world, from those used for formal occasions such as champagne flutes to the smallest glass behind the bar, the shot glass. Now, the shot glass was invented by, I guess this is true, Friedrich Otto Schott, co-founder of the glassware. This sounds like a joke, like an April Fool's joke, of the glassworks company Schott and Genossen. Obviously German. It was, or unless it's Austrian, it was Americanized from shot glass to shot with a single T and no C. There are those that say that the original shot glass was the small reinforced glass container that into which scribes would put their quills when they finished writing. I don't know.
What a good idea.
What a good idea. Interestingly, there is some consternation, that's their word, contestation, about what the appropriate size for shot glass. In the U.S., the standard is 1 to 1.5 fluid ounces, while in Europe, they're commonly 20 to 60 mils. Is that different, milliliters? Are those measures different? There are even different names for it. In Brazil, it's called a dose, and also known
as a jigger.
What's that famous song, A Jigger of Gin? Scotch and soda, jigger of gin, right?
Oh, what a mood you've got me in.
Oh my. Right? Scotch and soda. Do immigrants enjoy taking shots? Stingray is asking. Got a COVID shot today, Alan Long is saying. Lucky last day in Seattle for God knows how long. I guess last sunny day, he's saying. That's nice. Fritz Mueller's in Miami, where it's also sunny and beautiful on this shot day. Happy shot day, everybody. Whether or not you're celebrating it, we don't know, but we are, as always, celebrating the Fosie, who help keep us on the air, keep this show alive. Thanks very much for your support, especially those who are patrons via patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Baton Rouge is telling us that the term shots come from when in Western bars people would trade a bullet for a shot of whiskey versus a glass of whiskey if you had money. 1 fluid ounce equals about 30 mils, Steve Gruber.
Oh, that's good.
That's good to know. Yes. Thank you, Steve. Joe Holtzman, snowing and cold up in the Rocky Mountains in Estes, Colorado. And it's also really nice in Minneapolis. Look at that, Julie. It's nice around the world.
Good heavens.
Good heavens, indeed. Julie Vedekint, the co-host, and the Commodore of the Beach Street Yacht Club. My dear friend, you've had a great week. You got to the yacht club Wednesday night to celebrate our American
Yes,
Olympians.
that was a
And
nice one.
John Kostecki,
Yes,
who, along with Austin Sperry, won the Star Worlds.
correct.
JK is the only person
Yes,
who has won the round the world race,
yes,
the America's Cup,
yes.
an Olympic medal, and now the Star Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not just a hat trick, as Jenny Tulloch called it the other night.
Right.
That's a quad something,
Yep.
a quad trick. JK, John Kostecki, we are live from
He's in
Beach.
good shape too.
Yeah, he looked good.
Yep.
They all did.
Yeah, they did.
Hans Henken was there. Hans, who crewed for an R49er bronze medalist. Hans coming on the show.
Yes.
He is coming on the show at some point sooner
Good.
than later. I'm your host, of course. You all know who I am, the Crouton in
The
Chief.
crouton in chief.
The Crouton in Chief, indeed. Thanks for joining us. Speaking of, I won't call him a crouton, but he's certainly an esteemed fozy. You know who that is, Julia?
Captain in chief.
Yeah, he's the captain. He's piloting his plane into San Francisco yesterday afternoon. That is, no, he wasn't piloting his plane, but he managed to get in the seat and get a photo taken. That is none other than the Sydney Sider, Pedro foiling sailor, a.k.a. Peter Stevenson, who's down, I think, right now on Pier 39. Didn't I see in the comments up above? Mm-hmm. Peter is here in San Francisco. Sad proceedings. He's at a funeral for somebody. I think his wife's brother or something.
Brother-in-law.
A brother-in-law, his brother-in-law,
Yeah.
a relative. So nice to have you with us, Pedro, here in San Francisco. And then he took this photo, Julia.
Yes.
From Nob Hill this morning. He says this is the view from Nob Hill where he was having breakfast this morning. And I thought I would take this opportunity, Julia, to point out in this photo, what's that domed building there on the left, Julia?
The Palace of Fine Arts.
What I call the POFA, the Palace of Fine Arts. And right about here is the
Beach Street Yacht Club.
And right about here is the
St. Francis Yacht Club.
And right about here is the
Golden State Yacht Club.
State, not the Golden State,
Yacht Club.
the Golden Gate.
Oh, Golden Gate.
The Golden Gate Yacht Club. So there we are. There St. Francis is, just 4 blocks away, and then a block down to the east is the Golden Great Yacht Club, or the Golden State Yacht Club, or the whatever yacht club you want to call it, Julia.
Yes, sorry.
The Golden Gate Yacht Club. So there we are, and there Peter Stevenson is. We'll see him, a.k.a. Pedro Foiling Sailor, at some point over the next couple of days. He's going to do something, I hear, for the Croutonic Corner. He's going to enlarge it. He supposedly brought something with him from Oz. So we shall see what he has for us. We'll look forward to seeing him.
Right.
A couple other Fozy programmatic notes. Next Friday, we have the esteemed Britton Ward, who's been a regular on here on and off over the years. He is the chief designer, the senior series naval architect at FAR Yacht Design. He's just back from Barcelona, where he's been the technical director for the American Magic team, New York Yacht Club's American Magic. He's coming on to share his insights with the just completed AC-37 next Friday.
Oh, good.
Next Friday the 15th. So don't miss that one. He's always a fascinating guest. We'll see if we can get Dan Bernasconi on in due course from Team New Zealand, but having Britt on will be a real treat.
Yes, always.
Great to see Britt Ward, Chris Exley is saying. So that's what, yay, Britton Ward, Stingray, everybody's happy about that. Don Lunabos, thank you for your kind comments to Peter Stevenson and his family. So John Albert Collings, there's an interesting comment from John Collings. That's what I heard too last time I sailed against him in the 88 Soling Worlds. That is John Kostecki, of course, who had his silver medal. Was it a silver medal or a bronze medal?
Silver.
In 88 in Busan in Korea in the Soling.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one program note. There's another program note. Julia, do you know who this Fozy is? She has the #1 credit in our pre-show, in our post-show credits. That is the esteemed snapper, photographer, superb photographer,
Sharon Green.
Exactly. Well done. Sharon Green, who was born in Canada. Oh, Canada, up in Toronto.
Yeah.
And her dad was a senior serious, great sailor and great promoter of the sport at the Royal Canadian Yacht Club and beyond. She is a superb photographer. She promises to put together a little slideshow for us of some of her favorite shots. And she will be appearing a week from Tuesday the 19th of November. And guess what she sent us, Julia? She sent us a lot of swag. Now, we learned the other night, I had no idea what swag stood for. Did you hear that at St. Francis the other night?
I forgot.
They told us that swag stands for stuff we all get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Swag is stuff we all, well, she sent us some swag. Well, here, I better hold it up here to camera too. That is a mouse pad. You want a mouse pad? You don't have a mouse over there. There's another mouse pad. I'll put it over here on camera 1. Another mouse pad. These are obviously her photos.
Really nice.
And you know, this is Merlin, isn't it? What is this boat? Is that Merlin? In the Transpac race going into Honolulu?
I don't think
Diamond Head behind? I think it is.
Is it?
I'm not sure. And then the Ultimate Sailing Calendar, which she produces each year. It's a real keepsake. It's a fabulous item. She may even have some Ultimate Sailing Calendars to give out on the show.
Oh, good.
On Tuesday the 19th, a week Tuesday, when she joins us live from, I guess, Santa Barbara. She lives down in Santa Barbara, down near you, where you grew up, in Carpinteria.
Right.
And this I'm a little worried about, Julia, because this is a 1,000-piece puzzle.
Uh-oh.
When was the last time you put together a puzzle like this?
Not that big.
It's a big puzzle, 1,000-piece puzzle.
But it's got to be nicer than this. Lots of different. Well,
this isn't the calendar. This is the watercolors note card set. I mean, she really sent us some stuff.
Wow.
Here's the calendar for 2025. The Sharon Green calendar, month by month, with one of her famous photos on it, including there's Ilka's, there's some cool stuff on here, Julia. Ilka's, the AC40s, the America's Cup, the Optis, and on and on and on and on.
Yeah, great. Great coverage.
It's just, here's a sample of some of the shots on her 2025 calendar, Sharon Green's calendar. I look like that guy, and what's that television show that looks over the fence and you never see anything except his nose and his eyes?
Yeah.
Was that Seinfeld? What was that show?
I don't know.
I don't either. Come on, Julia, you're supposed to know this stuff. I sure don't.
I know.
I'm old with a failing brain here. That's Sharon Green. Tuesday the 19th will be our special guest. So we got a couple cool guests coming up and others going forward here. That's it by way of introduction for today's show. John Emmett, I thought he was coming on now. No, he's coming on a week from today. Silver in 88. Yes, thanks, Steve Gerber. We're talking about John Kostecki and Sharon Green. What did I say? Did I not say Sharon Green? Yeah, Cheryl. He knew. He's just saying it was Sharon Green. Stuff we all get. Swag. Blake Middleton knew that. In business, swag stands for simple, wild-ass guesses. Chris Exley. That's pretty good. Steve Groover is saying, yes, Merlin, and the other mouse pad is the J-Class Savea. Yes, indeed.
Oh, yeah.
Nice stuff. Her ultimate sailing puzzles are great gifts, Fog Machine is saying. That's Lance Burke here in the Bay Area. I don't know if I have the patience to put together a 1,000-piece puzzle. Baton Rouge is telling me that guy that went up above the fence was on Home Improvement, was the name of that television show.
I missed it.
The show was Home Improvement. Yeah, Clark Chapin. Okay. Hakan Hawkinson. Hello, Hakan. Ultimate Sailing Calendar is arguably the best Christmas gift.
That could be.
Niley Williamson, John Emmett saying it's from Tool Time. So what was it? Home Improvement or Tool Time or both?
Neither one of them are things I follow. So
Tool Time. Joe Holtzman says it was Tool Time.
I believe him.
Scientific wild ass guess for swag. Wilson is, Wilson's the character's name. Okay, enough of all that. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this show number 781. This guy, Yannick Bestaven, is not the favorite, but he won last time. Remember, he was not the first to finish. If you remember all that back, he stopped to help rescue the oldest sailor. What was the guy's name? And he got time. He got redress from the jury for the time he spent trying to rescue. I'll think of the guy's name. And Jean Lecomte, was it, or was it somebody else? No, it was somebody else actually. So we'll talk about that in a moment and who the favorites are. And this guy, however, by the experts, and we have some expert opinion for you via Tip and Schaff on today's show, he's not the number one choice, number one prediction. It's Charlie Delon. Jean Lecomte, Christopher Gillingham's reminding us it was Jean Lecomte. Okay. Julia, I have a special This Day in History today. You're going to like this one.
All right.
It's right down our alley and probably anybody else of a certain age, because it has to do with something that happened on the 8th of November, 1960. Do you know what happened on that date?
I was on my first trip to Europe.
Here is your first hint. Clark Chapin's got it. Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, elected. Okay.
Ding, ding, ding. John Kennedy was elected. Yes, this is election week, and it's always the first Tuesday of November, right, Julia?
Right.
So these two gentlemen ran against each other. Of course, both sailors, at least Kennedy was a big sailor. Nixon, not so much. He was a stink potter. He was a power boater. John F. Kennedy and Richard Milhous Nixon. And as Clark recognized, today was the day that JFK defeated Nixon in 1960. He's elected president of the U.S., defeating Republican candidate Richard Nixon, who was the incumbent vice.
Correct.
He was the vice president for whom, Julia? For whom?
Oh, God.
Who was president before that in the 50s, built the interstate highway system, won the war? True. General Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Right.
Okay, so let's, that got me thinking about Dwight D. Eisenhower, and I'd heard that he had been at the America's Cup. Joe Holtzman knows it, Ed Worley knows it, Clayton Embley, Steve Adkins. Boy, we must only be a few seconds apart in terms of the delay from here to Facebook and YouTube, because you're all right back with comments. And Dwight D. Eisenhower, President Eisenhower was president from 52 to 60. And here he is on the left at the America's Cup in Newport, Rhode Island. I'd heard he'd been there, but I wasn't sure that he had been. And we also hear some rumors about one of his not so nice quotes about sailing in the America's Cup. So I did a bit of a look into that today, and here is the first report.
A spectator fleet of 1,000 boats awaits the start of the America's Cup yacht race off Newport, Rhode Island. And America's first family are to be the #1 onlookers. President Eisenhower and Mrs. Eisenhower board the destroyer Mitcher to watch the first race in the 17th Challenge Series for the cherished International Yachting Trophy. Columbia, the American Defender, and the Scepter, the British Challenger. And here's the start of the Yachting Classic. The President sees the Columbia get away to an early lead in the 24-mile race. After rounding the first marker, the boats set their spinnakers. But the breeze is fickle and finally goes flat, leaving both becalmed, causing doubt they would complete the race in the 6-hour limit. Again, the breeze freshens and the Columbia draws away. The Scepter is outclassed in this first race as the Columbia pulls out to a 3/4-mile lead. It's one of the most one-sided contests in the 106-year-old series. The Columbia, with famed sportsman Briggs Cunningham at the helm, wins by an 8-minute margin. The boat that wins 4 out of 7 takes the cup. It was a bad start for John Bull.
So that was the 58 Cup, won by Columbia. That's the first of the 12-meter era after the war,
Yeah.
won by Columbia. And remember who the helmsman was? Race car driver, famous race car driver?
No.
Briggs Cunningham.
Oh, Briggs Cunningham.
After whom, because he developed the Cunningham hole, or the Cunningham ring, as some of you in the Commonwealth would call it, that little ring that's up on the luff of the mainsail above the tack,
Oh, yeah.
forward lower corner. And instead of moving the boom up and down on a track to adjust the tension on the forward edge of the sail, he thought, well, why don't I just put a kind of big ring, a big grommet, up on the luff of the sail, run a line up through it, trim down on that line, it'll compress accordion the mainsail in the corner, forward lower corner, but there's so much windage there because of the mass and so on, it won't matter. And Briggs Cunningham was the skipper who won. Now you could see from that it was very, very light air.
Yeah.
And the president was not impressed. He was, however, summering in Newport. He liked Newport, as did Kennedy later, and made that the summer White House. That is out on Newport Neck at Fort Adams, just literally a stone's throw from Newport, from Sail Newport, the Newport Sailing Center. That is called Eisenhower House. And it had originally been the house, the residence of the whoever ran the fort back in the 18-something. This is called Fort Adams, which was the state fort. The first inhabitant was General Henry Jackson Hunt. Mm-hmm. And then Eisenhower used this as his summer residence during his presidency in 58 and 60. Initially, in 58, the president was living at the Naval War College, which is up north of the Newport Bridge at Coasters Harbor Island. There's a nice little yacht club there too. However, with his passion for golf, he moved to this location as it was close to the Newport Country Club.
How nice.
And it became known as the Eisenhower House and the Summer White House. Mm-hmm. Now, he was a golfer. He went out and watched that race in 58, and apparently he only went out one day, because when he came back in, he is reported to have said, watching the America's Cup is like watching paint dry. I'd rather play golf.
And indeed it was in those days.
So I don't know if this guy, Werner Reed, took the picture, a famous White House and beyond photographer of the era. So one of his more famous quotes was that any man who wants to be president of the U.S. is either an egomaniac or crazy. He may have been both, right on both accounts. That is both the America's Cup, which, at least that series must not have been much fun to watch, Julia.
Yes.
That's courtesy of Blue Shift Marketing. I found that online. Now, talk about egomaniacs and maybe people who are a little crazy. Do you recognize the gentleman there on the left with President Eisenhower is the second from the right in this photo?
Yeah.
That is...
I don't know.
Richard Nixon.
Oh, all the way to the
left. Far left, all the way to the left,
course.
was Dwight D. Eisenhower's vice president.
Right.
And Nixon, who was a power boater, in fact, did get aboard a 12-meter in Newport Beach back in 69. And that is the late, great Bill Ficker on the left, and then Nixon with his hands on the wheel in the middle. That is Briggs Cunningham, of whom we were speaking a moment ago, who won in 58, and then Bus Mossback, who, of course, won twice in the 60s, and it was also the chief of protocol for one of the Nixon White Houses. And Bus Mossbacker was quite politically involved in those days, and particularly because of his win in the America's Cup in 60, was it 2? Somebody remind me. So there's Nixon. And thanks, Ed Worley, for digging that picture up for us. And that is, again, in Newport Beach, near where Ed lives, Ed Worley. And I guess that was, by then, the boat called Newsboy, the 12-meter that got renamed. Ted Ryman's asking, is the current president an egomaniac or just plain crazy? Well, I thought you all would like that since it's presidential election week, without me having to mention the election or the results thereof. But let's talk about some more presidents. JFK, of course, was a famous sailor. He had a starboat back in the 30s, really loved to sail. He was at the America's Cup 1962 with Jackie, watching the race, gave the night before the first race, famously at a white tie dinner at one of the mansions, I think at Marble House in Newport, gave that welcoming address, and the two crews were assembled. Weatherly for the Americans and whoever, Gretel, I guess it was, for the Australians, remind me if I'm wrong, but gave that, sitting president, welcoming the two teams and giving best wishes.
Speech. I remember that.
It was. We played it on this show.
Yeah.
I have the video of it, but I'm not going to do it today. We played it before. There was a presidential on that same boat that same day. You know who that is on the right? Future senator and future presidential candidate and future czar flying around on his private plane, the environmental czar, John Kerry.
Okay.
He was out there as a kid that day with President Kennedy and Jackie and so on. Chris Exley knew that was John Kerry. Clayt's got it, just not spelled right. Close enough, Clayton. And I have from the Reagan Library. A lot of people don't realize this, Julia, but when the Aussies won in 1983, now we all know that D.C., Dennis Conner, Stars and Stripes went to the White House.
Right.
We, Oracle Team USA, went to the White House. But do people realize that Reagan invited the Aussies to the White House after they won in September of 1983? There's the picture. That's Alan Bond at the podium. And I have the video.
Wow.
Courtesy of President Reagan's library. Now, there's a bunch of famous Australian sailors.
Yes.
There's John Bertrand.
Yes.
There's Alan Bond.
And an American team.
And the American team was also there, except not Dennis. John Marshall, Tom Whidden, of course. Fritz Jewett was the first in the line there.
Right.
I mean, this guy had a lot of class and style,
He did.
dignity. And he doesn't have a teleprompter. He's got a notes for his speech. There's Bob Stone, the late great Commodore Bob Stone, who was Commodore in 81, 2, and 3 of New York Yacht Club.
Well, Ambassador and Lady Cotton, and Commodore Stone and Dalziel, crew members of both vessels, and ladies and gentlemen. 200 years ago, when the British Army surrendered at Yorktown, a song was played as the British troops marched out under a white flag, played by the British band because the colonials didn't have a band. The song they were playing was called "The World Turned Upside Down." Today, people must be questioning whether the term "down under" applies to Australia anymore. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the crews of both vessels. You all did an outstanding job. You captured the imagination of the people the world over. Skipper John Bertrand, you and the crew of the Australia II have shown us the stuff of which Australians are made. I know that your countrymen are proud of you, and I want you to take this message back that Americans are proud too. We're proud to have Australians as our very dear friends. We salute you in your hour of triumph. To the crew of the Liberty I say, and I'm certain all Americans feel this way, well done. I spoke with Dennis Conner shortly after the race. I'm sorry he couldn't be with us today. We should think of him not as the loser of this race, but as the man who successfully defended the Cup in 1980 and a skipper who's had a brilliant yachting career. A special word of congratulations to Alan Bond. Alan, you represent the kind of tenacity with which Americans and Australians can identify. For 13 years and 4 challenges and at heavy financial sacrifice, you've been trying to accomplish this feat. You just kept on coming. But don't relax now because, Alan, and that's the other message to our friends in Australia, the Americans are coming back stronger than ever next time around. Seriously, the competition that we celebrate today is a tribute to the spirit and peace-loving character of our two nations. During that race 132 years ago, when our yacht, the America, competed against a squadron of Britain's best. At one point, with the America 7.5 miles in the lead, our vessel passed the royal yacht. The captain of the America and the crew doffed their caps and stood at attention as a salute to the Queen and to their competitors. A British paper of the day noted, "A mark of respect to the Queen, not the less becoming because it was bestowed by Republicans." I understand that Commodore Stone and the members of the New York Yacht Club paid the same tribute to the crew of the Australia II at the end of this America's Cup, and I joined them. I might add that when we won that cup back in 1851, there were numerous comments about the America's unique design. We had every innovation of the day, except a winged keel, of course. Let me just say, that was 132 years ago. If we had to get beat, we're glad it was by the Aussies. But one final bit of advice to the Perth Yacht Club: don't bolt that cup down too tightly. But congratulations to all of you, both teams, and God bless you both.
Okay, well, this thing goes on for a bit, but I have never seen that tape.
I haven't either.
I found it this morning, and it has just recently been released. If you want to go back and look at it, Fritz Jewett, who's the late, great Fritz here from San Francisco, and was a big backer of America's Cup teams, including and especially Dennis. But that just video has shown up on YouTube recently, and it's from the Reagan Library. And that's how I found it. Alan Long said, yeah, nice vid, and Yarvahe, yeah, Reagan did have some grace. So he had good speechwriters too.
Yes.
And you know, it was just nice stuff.
Yes, I'm glad to see that. I've never seen that.
We'll dip back in here.
We did bring you a little memento, which will show you that indeed we were ahead of Australia at times. It's a picture of liberty in Australia, very close, I might add, which is the way it was the entire time. And also, on behalf of our syndicate, this is the Burgee that we flew all this summer. And
Upside down.
we would like to add that to
It's
your
upside down,
collection.
Fritz.
And now I have to say that Ellen Bond and I arrived in Newport, Rhode Island in 1974 for the first America's Cup competition. Our group with Freedom beat you in 1980, and now here you are back again, and you beat us in 84, but as the president says, watch out for us in 87. Alan, congratulations.
Mr. President, it gives me a great pleasure on behalf of our syndicate and the crew and the people of Australia that I present to you this book, which is 2 decades of the America's Cup. All of our crew and our contingent, that those that could not be here today, have signed this for you.
Oh, wow.
And I hope you will keep this as a memento, not just to us winning the Cup, but to the great friendship that exists between our two nations. Liberty and its crew put up a great effort, and we were just the better yacht on the day. I take nothing from them. Thank you, Mr. President.
So, okay, you get the idea. It was really a nice affair. Dennis was not there because apparently he was had other commitments. He was
I'm very proud
devastated.
to have these mementos. This, I'm very proud to have, I would call it a flag, you called it something else, and this picture. And again, just want to say that I think the people of Australia and the people of the United States all can be very proud of this event, of all of you who
A lot of
made
people
it.
don't realize that they were invited. That is, the Aussies were invited to the White House by Reagan. So,
Right.
and of course, then Dennis did bring the cup back
Yes.
in '87. The cup was not bolted down, if at all. It wasn't there very long, and then Dennis won it back, flew it back with his team from Australia. Stopped in Frio for a Frio. He stopped in San Diego for a moment, and gathered their wits, and then very shortly thereafter were in Washington at the White House, and then up for a ticker tape parade on Fifth Avenue on a very
Yes.
cold day in February 1987. So here he is at the White House with President Reagan, and guess what? I have another tape that I've never seen from that day.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States and the Vice President.
Thank you. Please be seated. The Stars and Stripes skipper Dennis Connor, members of the crew, and ladies and gentlemen, today the cup that went down under has come back up. It's only appropriate to be greeting the skipper and crew of the Stars and Stripes here in front of the Stars and Stripes. And by the way, you might be interested to know that Prime Minister Hawke of Australia and I had a little bet on the side. If Kookaburra 3 had won, I was going to give the Prime Minister one of those cowboy type hats that I wear now and then out at the ranch. And if you all won, well, oh, there it is. It'll be revealed. There it is. That's the Australian version.
You were just saying, Julia, that looks good on it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I've never seen this video. I never heard about that hat. I wonder if Ed Worley knows about that. And there is another future president. His vice president was George Bush,
Yeah.
who was president 41. A Kubra. Is that what that hat's called? An Akubra hat? A Stetson. An Akubra hat. Clay Embley is
I think
saying.
it's me or the kangaroo.
To make this victory possible.
Anyway, we won't listen to all this, but it's a fabulous speech. Again, this video courtesy of the Reagan Library that I just found online this morning when putting together
What a
this
nice find.
segment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that Aussie hat too, Blake. I think it's a very good-looking hat. Graham Sweeney says yes, a Kubra, A-K-U-B-R-A. So I have to explain the meaning of that to us. But there is President, as I said, President Bush out of the shot now, but he's on the right side, and he also spent a lot of time with the Stars and Stripes B team. And there were some jokes. John Sangmeister, who was part of that group, our Fuzzy John, can tell you some stories about the back and forth with what it's like to be on the B team and what it's like to be the vice president and how they're both treated the same sometimes. Kept in the dark and fed, you know what? What's the word, Julia? Okay, enough of that. Yes, indeed, as you all know, after that, another future president got involved. He sponsored this parade. There he is on the right.
Oh, yeah.
With the late, great mayor of San Diego, and then the late, great mayor of New York. There's Ed Koch on the left in the trench coat, and D.C. is up there somewhere. And that is that famous Fifth Avenue ticker tape parade on a very, I was not there, but a very cold day in 1987. A lot of friends and, of course, future America's Cup colleagues. So I then joined that team, that operation, right after they won and brought the cup. Oh, I wanted to see that. Connor crew get big cheers. This was the newspaper article. And again, the parade in the second paragraph, paid for by a real estate magnate. Donald Trump was the last public event on a 4-day American victory lap. So the future president, Donald Trump, gets involved. He gets a half model from D.C. Look at how young Trump looks.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how young Dennis looks.
I was going to say, both of them do.
And of course, that is, 40 years ago? Almost. And 37 years ago. And they're on the wall in Trump's office, courtesy of the New York Times. That half model is still there. This is his office in Trump Tower in New York. I don't suppose he'll take that to the White House, back with him to the White House. And then, of course, President Obama got involved. He invited us, Oracle Team USA, after we won the Cup in February of 2010. Took a while, but eventually we were invited. There was no big gathering, no media. I don't know if he was embarrassed to be with us or not, but he was very gracious. And his then Chief of Staff, Rahm Emanuel, was very nice. I spent a lot of time helping sort this all with with Rahm Emanuel. And I had to stage that picture I was organizing, and I heard a president lean over to Larry on the right. He said, "Who is that guy?" And Larry said, "He's part of the adult supervision," which is a nice thing. As I'm trying to, orchestrate, get everybody looking at the thing, because the White House was not, they had a photographer there. We had a photographer there. I guess. In fact, we couldn't even have other team it was just a very tight thing for security, as it all. Well, you worked in the White House, so you know how it was. Fabulous day, one of the high points certainly of my sailing life. When did Donald's brain damage set in? Stingray wants to know. Okay, enough of all that, but that was a fun moment, and another president who greeted us very warmly, and has therefore, he was also down in in Auckland, sometime in the 80s. When was he president?
Who?
Not in the 80s.
Obama?
He was president from 2008 to 2016, right? I think he was. And I think he was at the Cup in Auckland in sometime. I don't know. I can't remember.
Probably 82.
Well, no, this is because he wasn't president. He wasn't even known until 20-something. Okay, I don't know. My brain has left. Yep. It's I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure Obama was down there. Maybe it was Clinton. So the future president, who will take office on January 20th, again, he will be president. He was president 45. He'll be the 47th president. Not only is he a big sports guy, he's a major golfer, as you probably all know. He will be presiding over three major sports celebrations, two sports celebrations and one other, happening during his term over the next 4 years: the World Cup, the Olympic Games, and the 250th anniversary of the U.S. of A. So that's going to be an interesting period. And I don't know how you feel, Julia, but without getting into the politics and who's happy and who's not about him being elected, the fact, though, that he is such a sports guy and so sports-oriented, I think is going to be a good thing for the 2028 Olympics and for World Cup soccer, to say nothing of probably the 250th anniversary of this country. So I hope U.S. sailing, world sailing, and everybody else works hard to take advantage, and the IOC and the USOC, and takes advantage of all of that. Because
undoubtedly, they are all working on it, but how well they take advantage of it.
I think people are just realizing it. I think it hasn't really set in until
that's probably true.
In the last 36 hours or so. So there it is. The LA Olympics 2028 will be here before you know it.
Yes.
And we'll probably be over 1,000 shows by then.
Yes.
We're coming up on 800, Julia. And if we do another 100 next year and another 100 the year after that, we'll be into the thousands, if God allows us both to still be alive.
I know.
I'm just happy to be awake wake up in the morning, and we'll see.
It's a good start.
Good start. Yeah, it's always a good start to wake up in the morning.
That's right.
Okay, Julia, let's get to John Emmett's report, the Coaching Corner with John Emmett. Yeah, and he's wrapping things up in Weymouth. They're winterizing in Weymouth. Here's John.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. Welcome to John Emmett's Coaching Corner. Sorry for the bit of background noise. We've got the helicopter doing their operations, as is often the case, but I've tried to take my window of opportunity as they're just flying around in the background, because I don't think they're going to stop just so I can record my video. You'll see in the background, just like Castle Cove, here where I'm filming at the Weymouth and Portland National Sailing Academy, we have lots of yachts off the water in the boat park. So it's now sort of 50-50 yachts and dinghies. And now it's really the beginning of the winter season. So if we look around, we can see that everybody's been taking their boats off and they're going up on the hard standing. and just looking after them. So this area over here is where the Performance Centre, the Arway Performance Centre, may go. It makes me wonder what would happen for the storage for all these yachts, but I guess that's a nice problem to have, so to speak. And that brings me on to today's topic as I walk around the academy, the winter training. And I think when I look at the RYA system, you can nearly always tell, you know, what squad people are in, because those who've got the most budget, for example, will be able to go to Australia, next tier down, probably Canary Islands, or places in some of like Villamora. And then the people on the most restrictive budget, which never did me any harm, would be here in Weymouth over the entire winter, because we have good winds, as in strong winds for fitness. No shortage of that, that's for sure. The situation is the boat park tends to be a lot quieter this time of year. So we're just coming to the end of the qualification events, the end of season events, national ranking events. So actually, in terms of the Ilka class, that's all finished for another year. Almost a 6-month break, I think, until the next event will be here in March. So that's when, you know, it's time to think about making the best use of your winter training to get as much performance as you can. So just another random top tip: if you look at the boats closely, make sure you tie your boat down well, and also, both for the good of your boat and a friend, make sure that the boat next to your boat is tied down very well as well, because you don't want any flying boats if the storms come through. And the way to know whether to be a little bit worried about that is if they ever give a system a name, so storm barrier or whatever, then you need to be thinking, okay, make sure the boat's really well tied down, because of course everything is okay until it's not. However, you'll see there's a few covers on the ground, so people are out sailing, and Portland is affectionately known as Foil Town, so we probably have far more people foiling than conventional sailing this sort of time of year, so things like wasps, switches, moths, and then of course we have the windsurfers and the kite surfers. So if you're a big chap, I don't think you can be too heavy for the kite surfers. Nobody's reached there yet. 120 kilos would be pretty good, which is probably too heavy to sail a fin, I guess. But yeah, my little boat is here, just looking slightly lonely. And this is the main topic of the conversation now, is making the most of your winter break. So don't put off that maintenance until the following season. Before you pack your boat up for the winter, just go through and get everything that needs to be done, because you don't know how long it will take, and it's actually much better for the boat to get things done sooner rather than later. And of course, in a perfect world, don't pack your boat away at all and keep sailing all throughout the winter, because as a coach, I can tell you, it's always really obvious who's put those hours in over the winter months. So the other thing we have this time of year is also the change of the committees, and volunteers are the heart of our organisation. In fact, it's probably, with people's limited free time, becoming increasingly hard to run sailing clubs on volunteer basis alone. There's very few professional clubs, very few professional coaches at clubs, as it were, in the UK. What we do have is sailing schools, which do the grassroots and certification, which is important. I know it's strange for people who've sailed all their lives and don't necessarily have a certificate to prove it, but in terms of safety, to know you can operate a power boat or charter a boat, the RWA courses are just world-class and world-renowned. Always makes me feel a little bit sad as I walk past the Andrew Simpson Centre here, because Andrew, or Bart, as Andy was affectionately known, was not only a world-class sailor, but a hell of a nice guy, and is very, very deeply missed by a lot of people. But some very good things have come from it, and the Andrew Simpson Centre is a charity that get a lot of young people on the water, and they do help provide that certification, and those sort of things, it's good to do over the winter. I try and redo my first aid course because the more you practice something, the better you get. And that's one of the things, for example, with foiling. You could be a world-class sailor, but it still takes a long time to learn to tack and jibe the boat and get to the front of the fleet. So just make the most of your winter. Don't put everything off until the next season. And one of the most important things is probably fitness. So it sounds a bit backwards thinking, but I'm going to be taking probably about 4 weeks almost completely off on fitness, just to let those niggling injuries recover, so I can get through all of next season with a little bit less deep tissue work, acupuncture, and so on and so forth. As we get to the end of the site, don't worry, I'm going to stop before I get wet feet. We're now at the official test centre. These are all the windsurfers, kite surfers, etc. going on, and it's a very small world because the person who actually runs the centre was vice president of Loughborough Sailing Club, which is where I went. So I was vice president of sailing, he was vice president of windsurfing, and here we are 30 years later, still making our living. And well, it doesn't really feel like work. If you do what you love for job, you never have to work a day in your life, as they say. But we're still here, heavily involved in the sport, and it is a 12-month a year sport, although some people will travel for that. Lily will tell me that you can't sail in the UK for 12 months of a year, but obviously I will beg to differ. I'm still going to be doing my Sunday morning racing. I'm going to just turn around in a bit just before I get my feet wet, and you can see people learning to wing, learning to windsurf, and enjoying the flat water and strong breezes that you get in the harbour, which makes it very easy place to learn. One of the big things which limits sailing is often not so much the wind strength, but the sea state, and that's why so many people will come to Weymouth to train at the beginning of their high performance sailing career. So slightly longer coach's corner than usual, but old farmers saying wanted to make hay while the sun shines. Hopefully joining you on the show, and comments, questions, always very, very welcome. See you soon.
John Emmett, excuse me, get to the front of the fleet.
Yes.
That was a little bit longer than usual, but I think really good, and especially the comment he made about volunteers. This being the committee season, our clubs, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, are having their annual meetings, and their boards and
restaffing.
Are swapping around new Commodores and new Vice Commodores and so on and so forth. New Stag Cruise committee chairs, because I'm not going to do it again, I'll tell you that. That was good fun, but you need new blood too. Somebody who's fresh and got great ideas, and new blood. Yannick Bestaven, we're going to talk about him next, and others, because we've got the Vendée Globe starting this Sunday, 2 days' time. The 10th edition starts at 1300 their time, CET, in France, Les Sables d'Olonne, and it is the, I think, the #1 ocean race. I mean, we can talk about the ocean race, which is a team event, and they stop at different ports around the world, but this is single-handed, non-stop around the world. And who better to give us an introduction to the history? I'm not going to run the whole video, it's long, but Matt Sheehan is there in France and filed this report on his superb YouTube channel. Check it out, because I'm not going to run the whole video, as I said, but check out Matt Sheehan's YouTube channel, subscribe to it, and watch this entire video if you're a big Vendée Globe fan.
In this country, the top sailors are national sporting heroes. The start of their major offshore events are big occasions where the region will often be fully invested in hosting, sponsoring and promoting the events. And the biggest of them all is this one, the Vendée Globe, which starts and finishes here in Les Sables d'Olonne. This is the toughest offshore race in the world. It's said that 2/3 of the French public follow this race. That's over 22 million people. Maybe it's not surprising. It's the easiest race in the world to understand. One start, one finish, one lap of the world alone. 24,000 miles, roughly. But it's also a story of human endurance. Over the last 9 events, 200 people have started the race, 114 have finished. It's run every 4 years, and this is its 10th anniversary, and it's massive. The race started in 1989 with Titouan Lamazou winning the first race, getting around the world in just over 109 days. Next up was Alain Gauthier in Bagot Supérieur, then Christophe Augun in Geodis, Michel Desjoyaux, PRB in 2000. All the while the record was coming down and down and down. Vincent Rio, 2004. Michel Desjoyaux, again the only person to have won it twice, in Foncia. Then Francois Gabard in Massif. Armel Leclerc in Banque Populaire. He set the record just over 74 days. And last time around, Yannick Bestaven in Maitre Coq 4. But the thing about the Vendée Globe is it's not just about who won and the records. It's the images and the things that have happened in that 40 years. It's been quite remarkable. That was the first start, but straight away, Philippe Poupon capsizing. What about Bertrand de Broc? The story about him having to stitch up his tongue. Then we've got Pete Goss. Pete Goss sailed 500 miles upwind to go and do a rescue with Raphael Donnelly. Then we have Yves Parlier rebuilding his mast on his own, making his own autoclave on board the boat to do it. Tony Bullimore, I mean, there's a story that you didn't have to be a sailor to know the Tony Bullimore story. Upside down in the Southern Ocean, no keel, got rescued. Ellen MacArthur coming second, a phenomenal performance. In 2004/5, nothing happened. Well, there wasn't any drama at least, but it was a fantastic race. Here's an image we see every time, fireworks for the end as Vincent Rio finishes his race. But what about this one? Jean Le Cam, upside down, no bulb on his keel. He was rescued though, quite remarkable. Michel Desjoyaux, as we said before, winning for the second time, the only person to have done that. And this image here of Francois Gabard, the youngest winner of the Vendée Globe. The pictures and the images and the stories go on and on and on. This is an extraordinary race, full of amazing imagery, amazing stories. No wonder so many people come to see it every 4 years. The organisers say that 2.5 million people will visit this race village. And given the crowds that have been flocking here for days and queuing for hours to get onto the pontoons, it's easy to see how they get to these kind of numbers. The queues start in the morning outside the venue, and the pontoons are packed until well into the evening. And while the boats and sailors are the main attraction, the race village has plenty to draw people in for the day. I've been to smaller, less attended international boat shows. The Vendée Globe is quite simply something else. In fact, compare this to any other major sailing event. If you're looking at visitor participation, this is the big one. The people that queue here are not professional sailors. They're not solo sailors. They're ordinary people. Some of them may be sailors, but all of them want to see what makes this world tick. And I don't blame them. I'm wondering the same. The reality is that there are 40 boats here ready to set off around the world. And while we can marvel at the technology, I can't begin to imagine what it feels like to be preparing to head off for 24,000 miles alone. How would you even contemplate something like this? But when you talk to some of those that are about to do it, you see their world from another perspective. I got to talk to a number of them on board their boats, and we'll be running their interviews in full later on, so watch out for them. But in the meantime, here are a few of their comments. I started with Sam Goodchild, a regular Planet Sail contributor. I asked him to describe what his world would look like for the next 80 days. I mean, it's a hugely complex boat, but give us a sort of an overview of sort of your sort of typical day, I guess? I mean, where do you run the boat from?
Yeah, so it's basically two stations. This is kind of our standby station, if you like, on deck. So here, the first thing is you're against the bulkhead, so if the boat nosedives, you're not going to fly very far, which is reassuring. I've actually got a seat which can go here to make it a bit more comfortable. I've got headroom, which is rare on this boat. So I've got the computer here, so basically everything goes to the computer, obviously navigation, weather, talking with land, whether that's technical help or comms stuff. The autopilot, we've got the basic controls here and then all the smaller controls on the computer. The Oscar, which is the camera, or the CI now, which is the camera at the top of the mast, is through the computer. All the alarms are through the computer. All the looking at the competitors, whether it's POS reports, whether it's AIS, are through the computer. Basically everything runs through the computer. So we've got the screen here. Generally we have the main sheet next to us, whether port or starboard will have the main sheet next to us because it's the sail to ease if the boat starts losing control. And then you can have something else on the winch next to you. So basically here you can have everything at hand, so you have a little bit of an idea where you're going and be able to control everything. We've got the keel control here as well, which is pretty important on these boats because they've got tilt on them, so the boat flies part on the foil and part on the keel. So your keel is quite an easy way of calming things down or speeding up if you need to. And then obviously you can get quickly inside and quickly outside. So yeah, it's a nice central spot where you're pretty set in. Yeah.
It does feel like it feels, maybe not snug isn't quite the right word, but everything is easy to hand. You don't feel like there's a huge amount of space that you're sort of struggling to move around in.
No, I mean, it's definitely thought out by Tomo and by Guillaume Verdier and by the team as a single-handed boat. So when you're at the handles in the middle, for example, all four winches are basically, without moving your feet, you can get to all four winches. And the whole pit, so all the pits are split in two. They're pretty much symmetric, obviously apart from halyards and tack lines, but they're pretty much symmetric. And you can basically get to everything from the same set of handles. So it's pretty well thought out as a single-handed boat. So it'd be pretty busy if you're trying to do an ocean race.
Yeah, well, I would imagine it would be. And presumably, I mean, there are no sail controls that you need to go outside this cockpit area.
No, at the exception of taking it. Basically, we can put a reef in from here, but the Cunningham, if you want to go real, we could have we've got a down line on the luff, so you could kind of set up gently, but then you need to go forward to get the Cunningham. Right. Which, I mean, on these boats, there's so much water on the deck, you have to tidy up the furl of the reef anyway, otherwise you're going to get bags of water in it. So that doesn't stop you. It doesn't mean you have to go out the cockpit. And then obviously any sails would come out their bags, you have to go on the bow to plug them in. But apart from that, you can furl sails up, you can drop them, you have to go get them, and you can put reef in from here, yeah.
Right. And so how much time would you spend in 24 hours? How much time do you spend in the cockpit up here versus how much time you spend below deck?
It depends on the conditions quite a lot, but I mean, you're probably 50% of your awake time here and 50% down, or if you like 45% there and 45% here, and then 10% of doing something else. If you haven't got a big day of manoeuvres or something like that. But yeah, you're spending a fair bit of time here, which is why we've got the computer screens outside, so you can look at what you need to and be able to control the sails.
And as far as, I want to have a look down below in a minute, but just before we go down there, as far as eating, I mean, everything's freeze-dried now, and it's all sort of jet boil stuff, but someone said to me, I think it was last year, someone said that eating is now becoming a tactical issue because you actually have to slow down to actually not boil the water, but pour the water out and eat. I
mean, yeah, the boats are getting fairly uncomfortable and fairly dangerous, and food and eating is one of those problems. And whether that's you don't eat because it's just so much hard work or dangerous, so you end up losing energy and it costs you more in the long run, or whether that's boiling yourself with hot water like Boris Herman did in the ocean race last year. He's not the only one to have done it. I think other people have burnt themselves as well. I mean, they're not easy to live in environments when the conditions are tough. Like if you're going downwind in the Southern Ocean for 2 weeks, nose diving and slamming, you have to be pretty smart about how you manage your time and manage the boat. Yeah.
Sam, the first thing that strikes me is it's quite small, isn't it?
Okay,
this
goes on for quite some time, and you all can go watch it on Matt Sheehan's YouTube channel. Again, I commend it to you. And he then interviews three of the other English speakers. But do Do have a look.
Very
It's
much highlights
fascinating.
it,
Those of
so
you who are
it's
going to be
not very
fans or are fans, I think it's
But the idea
Yes,
is
quite an
absolutely.
interesting video, eh, Julia?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've got
You
a brake
agree?
on here,
Yes.
and the seat will spin
Okay,
round
and
as I like it.
thanks again to Matt
Got a screen on
Sheehan
both
for
sides.
that. Let's get into who the favorites are, and this according to Tip and Shaft today. It came out, and Julie, you were wondering why I was a little bit behind the power curve today. It
And
was
this is why.
because this came out, and I'm trying to read through it and see what we wanted to run, what we didn't. This is an excerpt from today's long and interesting, actually fascinating analysis of who will win the Vendée Globe. 40 skippers set sail on Sunday, as you all know, on the 10th edition of the Vendée Globe. Tip and Shaft has enlisted the help of 4 of the event's winners: Michel Desjoyeaux, who's the only person to have won it twice, as you heard Matt say, Vincent Rieu, Francois Gabard, and Armel Lecléache, as well as sailors Christopher Pratt and Franck Camas to assess the field. Of the 40 IMOCA boats in the running, including 13 new boats, the group thinks around 10 can win and around 20 can finish on the podium. So that's maybe half the field, at least according to Christopher Pratt, who adds, quote, "The density of the field is certainly unprecedented, and the level of prep of the skippers and their machines is constantly improving, so we can expect boat speeds to increase and race times to decrease if the weather cooperates." And as you all know, I guess you all know, I keep saying that, but as you probably know, Around the World in 80 Days, right? What was that? Phineas, what was that guy's name? What was the movie?
Fogg.
Phineas Fogg in the movie.
Yeah.
Around the World in 80 Days.
Right.
Round the World in 80 days.
I just saw that again. Yeah.
But you saw it on one of your old movie cable
Yeah.
channels. So these guys do it in under 80 days. The winners have of late. And the last time they did it in 70 something, 2 days. And we'll see if they do it again. Depends. Obviously, a lot is weather dependent, but here we go. Vincent Rieu agrees they're prepared in a way that's never been the case at the start of the Vendée, because the race for qualifying miles forced everyone to sail. Remember, we were covering those qualifying races back and forth to New York and around the British Isles, and I can't remember what all. So these teams have been out practicing because they had to qualify. There were more than 40 boats that wanted to sail in this. What's more, at the beginning of October, the Finisterre Ocean Racing Training Center organized a 24-hour outing in over 30 knots in heavy seas. I didn't think anyone would turn up, and they all did.
Wow.
You still need a certain level of confidence to go on a committed outing like that 10 days before the start for Les Sables. Although it was difficult for our experts to pinpoint a podium finish, in the end, it was Charlie Dolan on Massif Santé Prévoyance, who came out on top by a narrow margin. Again, Charlie Dolan, ahead of Jan Richon, and followed by Jeremy Bayou, whom we've been following along with Thomas Rian. We've been following them now over the years we've been covering this race. So there is the pre-race favorite, Charlie Dolan on Massif, and that's a fairly recent photo in just obviously in the ocean, just off Les Sables d'Olonne, fairly recently. Okay, the article goes on to say the one who ticks the most boxes is Charlie Dolan. That's Vincent Rieu's quote. He still has a lot of energy and knows the event without having taken part many times. This is only his second participation, second in 2021, which is an important point as it's a race that wears you out.
Must be.
Indeed. What's more, the skipper from Le Havre, winner of this year's New York Vendée and Défi Azimut, and the end of the Fastnet race in 2023, can count on a versatile boat. Very good at transitions, which enables him to get out of light wind zones a little more quickly than the others, which can be interesting on the way down or up the Atlantic, stresses Armel Lecléache. A couple of you mentioned how important and maybe how the race is won or lost, not in the Southern Ocean, but in the Atlantic, on the first leg down to see Ted Ryman.
Yes.
Okay, second on our experts' podium, Tip and Shaft said, is Jan Richaume. Quote, knows how to press hard. He has a very high pace and has proven he can win. He's winner of several other similar events. And comments Franck Camas. His level goes up a notch every time he goes solo. Christopher Pratt adds that his Imoca, that is Jan's Imoca, seems ideal for this race, especially for big sea states and downwind sailing. Any weak points? Well, quote, as the boat is a little heavy, she's a little less at ease than some in light airs and transition phases. And Franck Camas adds that, quote, the Coke designs have a weak point upwind. So there's some really good analysis. I'm just excerpting from this long article, which again I commend to you. On the third step is Jeremy Bayot, second in the Retour à la Base, and third in the New York Vendée, who is about to race his fifth Vendée Globe. Fifth! He's back with a lot of experience, which is a great asset, is Armel Leclerc's quote, and he's got a boat with potential that he's made reliable with a big team. So Franck Camas says as well, Jeremy Bayot's co-skipper on the last Transat, Jacques Vabre. Jeremy has to keep his morale up to get through the difficult moments and technical problems because he can take the blow a little harder than the others. At first I thought he was being critical of his inability to do that, and then it sounds like he thinks he can. This is a translator from the French, of course.
Yeah.
So there is Charal and Jeremy Bayou. And another big favorite is Thomas Rouillant, who we've talked a lot about over the last years, competing in his third Vendée Globe on a Coke Finot Conch 2023 design, quote, who quote, doesn't have the same racing profile as the previous three, according to Michel Desjoyeaux, but knows how to manage his race, go fast, keep up the pace, and be technical enough to manage his equipment. Franck Camas praises Thomas's, quote, always positive spirit, which enables him to get back up the slope and stay in the game despite the difficulties. So it goes on and on. And Francois Gabart says it's hard not to mention the previous winner, Yannick Bestaven, who, again, won after he was not first to finish, but he was awarded redress, as he should have been, for his part in the it was Kevin Escoffier that they were trying to rescue as well, right? Even if his latest results so far haven't matched his previous Vendée Globe. He struggled here in the New York and so on. So we'll see how he does. And again, he having won the last one, a lot of people say, he ain't going to win the next one. It's too hard to win, other than Michel.
Or to go after it.
Well, he'll go after it, and we'll see if he can two-peat. We'll see. There's the top five from the experts. Again, Charlie, I'll recap here. Charlie Delon, Jan Richaume, Jeremy Bayou, and Thomas Rouillant, followed by our kind of hero favorite, perhaps Boris Herrmann, who is in Hamburg, Germany, sails for the Yacht Club de Monaco. The Yacht Club de Monaco. Speaking of whom?
Yeah, I am the second time in the Vendée Globe, and I thought I would be more relaxed, but I'm not. My name is Boris Herrmann. I'm 43, I'm German, and I live in Hamburg. And it's certainly a bit paradox. There have been moments in the last Vendée Globe, and I remember very clearly where I called our team manager and my wife, and I said, please, if ever I want to do this again, remind me of this situation where I'm absolutely convinced this is, I should never try to do it again. And yet here we are and doing it again, and it's what brings me out of bed in the morning, and it makes life some way easier in the long term to have a big goal. I would have expected to be super relaxed 2 months before the start, but I'm actually getting very nervous and can't sleep at night, and I don't know really what's happening. Still, it is a leap into the unknown. You're never really certain what to expect, and so I feel the excitement of this Vendée Globe. more than ever. The best moments for me in the Vendée Globe or any of the offshore sailing are those where we forget a little bit about the race. Really looking forward to those moments where I forget time and distance and I will be just in my own little bubble. Maybe you have sailed a week or 2 weeks. There's this mountain of time and distance ahead of you. The Vendée can also be quite scary. Being alone for 3 months. I really like to be around people, and so I will miss that a lot, and it will be a huge contrast for me. The nice thing about the offshore race, and each time we come back, we're a little bit reborn and renewed, and see normal things through fresh eyes.
Enormous Things Through Fresh Eyes.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Sponsored by Musto. Julia, is he your favorite?
Yes.
You sure?
So far, but I can change my mind.
Yeah, I see Ted Ryman is cheering for him as well and hopes that he does well. We all do. But I think Charlie Dallon looks, on paper at least, I agree. I'm influenced by the experts, of course, but I think I agree with the experts in their choice of Charlie Dallon. I'd love to see this guy two-peat.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that won it last time, but we'll see. Now, this is a video in French, but this is from early this morning. So it's not only timely, but it gives you an up-to-date feel for what's going on the pontoons, on the docks in Les Sables d'Olonne. And we have English subtitles for this.
Il est à peine 8 h du matin ici au Sable d'Olonne. Les pontons sont complètement dans le brouillard, il n'y a pas grand monde. Mais ça ne veut pas dire que les équipes techniques ne sont pas déjà au travail.
Et ce jour-là, au programme de Groupe Dubreuil Sailing Team, carénés sont 60 pieds.
Voilà Martine.
L'ingénieur composite et son boat captain vont passer 1 heure dans l'eau du port à 14 degrés en respirant grâce à un compresseur.
Bon, Gabriel, le boat captain, m'a proposé de venir voir ce qu'il faisait, alors on se jette à l'eau.
Le but, enlever toutes les aspérités sur la coque des algues, des coquillages, pour optimiser la glisse. Les équipiers renouvellent l'opération 3 fois par semaine. À chaque équipe, sa méthode. À 4,50 m de profondeur, le team Holcim plonge lui en bouteille pour chouchouter une quille de près de 3 tonnes.
Caréner, ça permet de passer un peu de temps sous l'eau, de voir toute la partie immergée qu'on ne voit pas et qu'on ne peut pas vérifier, de faire un check de toutes ces parties-là, de la quille, des foils, des safrans. Pour moi, c'est important d'être au contact tous les jours du bateau.
Bon, il n'y a pas que dans l'eau que les teams bossent, on va aller voir l'équipe de Conrad Coleman qui est sur le point d'avitailler. Ça va Maury?
Salut Maxime.
La forme?
Bah nickel, écoute.
Qu'est-ce qu'on fait là?
Eh ben on charge l'avitaillement. Parce que les sacs c'est 20 jours par sac.
T'as besoin d'aide?
Si tu t'ennuies,
allez go.
Contre.
Le skipper américano-néo-zélandais embarque près de 140 kg de nourriture pour sa deuxième participation.
Je pense qu'il y a un petit trauma 2016 où il lui a manqué 15 jours de bouffe, donc il a fait 15 jours de plus que la prévision.
Dans cette petite équipe composée de 4 profils polyvalents et internationaux à l'année, chacun met la main à la pâte.
On a fait la dernière nave de test hier, donc on a un peu fini de valider, mais maintenant il faut finir de mettre dans les sacs de sécu, les sacs de matos de remplacement. Le défi majeur, c'est de réussir à faire venir ce qu'il faut dans les temps, parce qu'on n'a plus beaucoup de temps.
À quelques heures du départ, les 40 équipes finalisent les préparatifs.
Dernier détail en voilerie.
Un travail qui reste encore à effectuer sur certains bateaux, d'autres sont déjà prêts. Un travail qui en tout cas est indispensable aux 40 skippers de ce 10e Vendée Globe.
I like that video.
Yes.
There are a ton of videos out there. There are so many videos I can't tell you. And again, my job, I'm the chief curator for these shows. Try to find the stuff that I hope you think is interesting. I hope you think is interesting and cut the crap, so to speak. The women, we got 6. Again, I think there were 6 last time, weren't there? Or there were 5, but there's 6 this time. And Justine Metro from Switzerland in teamwork is one of the 6 female skippers, but not the number 1 rated according to most of the experts. That belongs to Sam Davies of Great Britain. And how do you pronounce that, Julie? You're the French the Francophone, the French speaker. Initiatives, Coeur.
Cur.
What does that mean? Somebody in
the starting heart. I don't know.
Is that heart starting? It looks like a heart. So somebody, Steve Atkins, I'm Boris, and he's for all the women. Steve Atkins says. So let's have a look at Sam Davies from Great Britain.
If I crash,
Initiatives of the heart.
I'm not going to come running home straight away. I'm going to finish that race at all costs. My name's Sam Davies. I'm 50, British skipper, and I'm skipper of the boat Initiative Care. A lot of skippers always say that they dreamt of doing the Vendée Globe ever since they were a kid. And for me, when I was a kid, the whole thing just terrified me. No single Vendée Globe is ever the same. The unknown is something that's, well, it's a massive factor of why we do this race. Doing the Vendée Globe is crazy. It's such a unique race. You don't even ever get the opportunity to spend 2.5 months or 3 months on your own anywhere on this planet. Nothing really like it, because we're going out there knowing that we're just going to get nailed with a whole heap of problems and no idea what's going to happen, and also have a whole heap of amazing things happen as well. It's a bit Russian roulette of who's going to make it and who's going to not make it, and it's just so unfair.
J'ai eu un petit frayas ce matin quand toutes les alarmes commençaient à sonner. Je pensais que j'avais cassé mon phone.
It's been 2 moments when I kind of had just decided it was just too hard, and I'm going to retire and stop sailing. It's just stupid, the sport I'm doing. And one of those moments was when I dismasted in 2012. And at the moment my mast came crashing down, then I knew the whole project was over. It's still unfinished business. I discovered this race in 2008 when I did my first Vendée on Roxy. That first Vendée Globe I came fourth, and really not far from a podium finish. Proved to myself that winning this race is possible.
Et là, je suis hyper contente parce que donc, je regardais les classements. En ce moment, je suis 3e pour les pointages.
I kind of promised myself that if I ever had the opportunity to do a Vendée Globe again, whatever happened, I wanted to put everything in place to finish at all costs.
C'est parti.
And when I say finish, even if I have to have outside assistance, if my mast breaks and I'm in Australia, then I want to be able to find a solution. If someone said, "What are you scared about?" I'm scared about not finishing the Vendée Globe.
She wants to finish, bless her heart, no pun intended. That's her sponsor, apparently.
I'm tempted to say the English translation is heart starters.
Well, no, Chris Exley seems to have broken the code here. Heart Initiatives, they fund heart surgeries.
Right.
Did you see that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
For poor patients in third world countries. So thanks for that, Chris Exley.
Yes.
Bunch of smart people on here. Clayton Embley is saying, 3 months alone, can I sign my mother-in-law up for that? And send with her a good bottle of bourbon cream. Okay, well, we'll be cheering for Sam as well. We'll have a look at the race course now. There's no audio with this, but as you know, they're departing Sunday at 1300 is the 1302, and they have to go around the Azores. And the race, as a couple of you pointed out, is normally won or lost, barring some big major accident somewhere else in the Atlantic. They go down and see Ted in Cape Town, and then go across the Southern Ocean, past the other 2 capes, have to avoid the ice limits there to the south around Antarctica, Cape Lewin and the southwest corner of Oz, go south of New Zealand, and then Point Nemo, the furthest point from any place on the planet, any other physical place other than, I guess when they're at Point Nemo, they're closer to the space station. And then up through the Atlantic again, and how you play those 2 high pressures and the doldrums there at the equator is a big deal, and sometimes can impact, not normally because you have the race pretty well sorted out at that point, But in my understanding, it's not so much the Atlantic the second time. It's going down the Atlantic the first time that really shakes things out, if that's the right expression. Stingray is asking, does Studio B have handrails for safety and a soft bunk? No, we're not going to do watch parties here, I don't think, Stingray. Studio B is just, it's utilitarian, right, Julia?
Yes.
Utilitarian. So the Vendée starts on Sunday at 13:02, and they have television, both for which is a bigger deal, is the harbor departure, the dock out. The organization will produce 2 live broadcasts at the start. The first from 7:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. CET, Central Europe time, for the dock departure, and the second from 12:15 until 2, with the actual start across the starting line at 13:02 CET. CET is +9 to us here in the Pacific Standard Time Zone. Pacific Time Zone wasn't standard. When they're on daylight, we're normally on daylight and vice versa. Why don't they call it the Vendée Across the World Race, Flat Earth? Okay. Sail GP Watch Party. I really like the watch parties, John Emmett, and a lot of people are asking for us to do more watch parties. And if we could figure out, I can't do this start, and frankly, the start itself is not that interesting. But maybe we'll do some other watch parties if there's some other live action, certainly the finish going in. And of course, we'll do watch parties again, Julia, for the Sydney Hobart,
yeah.
Right? And we'll start the thing. I was thinking, Julia, the other day, we could have done a watch party for the U.S. presidential election, and we could have had Stingray in here.
I know.
Stingray and Gordon Smith. Oh, this is terrible. Trump's getting elected. We would have had you in your red dress all excited and relieved.
Yes.
Because you were so worried he wasn't going to get elected, and everybody in between, all the rest of us who are moderates. But as one of our good mutual friends said, when he saw that Trump had gone up 10%, he didn't win California.
Oh, yeah.
But instead of 35% of the vote, he got 45% of the vote in California. That was pretty astonishing.
Yes.
So I think from that point on, yeah, Joe Holtzman like a watch party with the presidential election. Okay, maybe we'll find something else to do a watch party for. That's let us know of mutual interest. Tell us via text or otherwise. The changes, because these are all watch parties. I mean, let's face it, when we have Britt Ward on here next Friday and when we have Sharon Green on here the following Tuesday, I mean, it's a watch party. And if you want, I've now got 2 computers over here that we had to set up for our watch parties for Barcelona. And if you want to do have Zoomers on, I can do that on one computer and then have Sharon and or Britt on the other computer feeding into our broadcast system. So we could actually do a Zoom input if you want to come on and ask live some questions and have your face on the show, but you can do it also in the comments. Trump, drink. Apparently that's the drinking word today. Trump. Trump. We'll start using Trump not in the presidential sense, Julia, but we'll use Trump in the you've been trumped by playing the ace of spades or something. Where did I come up with that? Okay, there was some news out of the America's Cup, which also ruined my Friday. And it's not it was actually kind of a non-announcement. First of all, they announced, AC 37/38, announced that there's a new challenger of record. And it's the same old challenger of record as you all knew 2 weeks ago, defender and challenger of record, which, by the way, you see a couple of you asked, what is CORD, C-O-R-D? That is an acronym that I penned back when I was writing protocols to mean the mutual consent between the challenger of record / defender, CORD. And Ken McAlpine liked that, and he started using it in the class rule because the class rule requires mutual consent between the challenger of record / defender, and some of the other stuff does, including the protocol. So if you see me referencing CORD, C-O-R-D, that means the challenger of record / defender having mutually consented to something. And Yar Vahe says, yeah, it was kind of a nothing announcement. It was like announcing that the sun came up a couple weeks ago, Clark Chapin is saying. You're going to have to contract with utilities for power pretty soon. Well,
I was wondering if why we couldn't use Starlink
for what?
communicating.
Well, we could use Starlink. You'll have to call it Mr. Mod, but we got a great internet connection.
Yeah, we do.
And we've hopefully we won't have any power. We may have some power outages, but generally speaking, they don't turn the power out here in San Francisco. You'd have chaos if you didn't traffic lights.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have, police and communications and so on. So when they do those brownouts or blackouts for the fires and so on, they do it up where your cottage is up in Napa Valley.
Yep.
In Calistoga, but they don't. They threaten that they're going to turn the power out here due to wind and fire damage. Bad fire in SoCal.
Oh yes.
Bad fire. I hope all of you are staying safe down there, but that's inland a bit. I get all squishy when you talk about the COR and AC-38. Okay, so what about this non-announcement? Well, they announced that they had agreed, they had appointed, they had gotten a challenge of record, and here they are. One is a FOSI, one is not. After the last AC, right as the boats cross the finish line, as the modern tradition goes, the pre-protocol, as I call it, and that's an agreement to agree. That's basically the challenge of record and the defender, the CORD, will agree some kind of a protocol down the road. And signing that document in Barcelona as the yachts cross the finish line, it was RNZ, the Royal, graphics department screwed that up. The Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, Commodore Gillian Williams, and the Royal Yacht Squadron Limited chairman, Bertie Bickett, who's been on the show. We've checked that out, and he's a nice guy, good guy. I don't know if he's strong enough, or if collectively, if the Royal Yacht Squadron and Sir Ben are strong enough, again, to fend off the not the advances. It's not like they're fending off on a hot date or something, but the defender has got to be held in check, or at least in abeyance, so they don't run away with the candy store. Was that a mixed metaphor times
yes,
three?
Three.
What should have been? But you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Obviously, after an hour and 34 minutes, I'm more cryptonic than usual. But they did sign this pre-protocol in Barcelona, as we reported quite some time ago, and then the press release today trumpeted the news. The Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron and the Emirates Team New Zealand, why is the team involved in this, are pleased to confirm that the RNZ has accepted a notice of challenge for the 38th America's Cup from the Royal Yacht Squadron Limited, represented by Ineos Britannia, which will act as the challenger of record for AC-38. Okay, so far non-news. The parties are already working together to pave the path.
Yay!
There's some alliteration, Julia. Pave the path ahead for the 38th America's Cup, building on the success of the Louis Vuitton 37th America's Cup in 2024. Okay, so here were the specifics. By the way, Richard Gladwell wrote a good article. I woke up to it this morning and said, oh, here's the news overnight. And Richard's written a bit of an analysis, but frankly, there's nothing in this. It's we will agree to agree. And any of these details that maybe have been agreed were all stuff you knew they were going to agree to anyway. Mm. It has been agreed that AC-38 will be a multiple challenger event, okay? There's no news there. Having lodged the first challenge, the Royal Yacht Squadron has been appointed as the challenger of record. No news there. In particular, the following has been agreed. The class of yacht will be, that's not news. The existing crew nationality rule will be retained, with some emerging nation provisions to be reviewed. Well, you knew they were going to have to do that. Mm-hmm. It is intended that the AC-38 match will be held within 3 years, not 2 years that Mr. Dalton was talking about. And I told you there was no way they were going to run it in 2026. A, new teams need time to raise money. Yeah. B, old teams need time to reconfigure and raise money and get themselves back together, right, if they're going to compete again. And C, 2026 has the Winter Olympics, has World Cup soccer and other things. It isn't going to happen in 2026. The earliest it would happen, I said weeks ago, would be 2027.
Yeah. And then to be followed by 2028.
Yeah, and it's not going to be in 2028 because they got the regular Olympics then and
Right.
the regular Summer Olympics. So they're going to do it in 2027, and with adjustments needed for the hemisphere, they have to say that in case it ends up being in the southern hemisphere, it might be in February of 2028. That's possible if it's in New Zealand, but it's not looking likely from what I hear. By the way, it may not be in Saudi Arabia either. I'm hearing that it's more likely to be in Abu Dhabi or Bahrain or even Dubai. But
I'm sorry to hear that.
what do I know? I should be in New Zealand. They should go back to Auckland, and I
Yeah.
hope they do a deal.
Yes.
But I'm not holding my breath, Julia. Are you?
No, but somebody ought to be.
I'm not holding my breath because you got to follow the money, and when $200 million or euros or whatever's are on offer from the Middle East, that's where they're going to go. Clark's getting squishier by the minute, he says. Okay, so there was no news in all of that to speak of, except, well, not even the 2027, which we all figured out, and all of you probably figured out a long time ago. Only one boat there's some other detail. They're only going to build one boat again, and we're going to maximize the AC-40s for use by the women and the men, women's and youth. America's Cup's good. That was nothing new.
But Mark Allen says.
And we're going to try to have more preliminary events. Julia.
Mark Allen says if you can build a new AC-75, and you'll have 2 boat stables.
But they'll put limitations on how and when you can sail, including you can't sail your current AC-75 for another year. That's in this agree to agree.
Oh, that means you don't have to build a new one.
Well, you do. It takes time to design and build. You got to wait to see what the new class rule is. And until you see the new class rule, even if it's only slightly, there will be modifications. Like, they didn't say anything about cyclers. Are they going to allow cyclers again, or are they going to put battery packs and get rid of the cyclers and everything like the AC-40s will be electric? What do you think? What do the FOSI think?
I don't know. The cyclers always seem out of place to me, under deck.
I totally agree, Julia. Totally agree. Mark Holland, and you see that they are revving up to compete with the AC-40s against the upstart Sail GP. Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it. As Richard Gladwell said in his piece this morning on sail-world.com, the Sail GP's got a leg up.
Oh, yes.
Right? Big time. I think they should allow sailing training, J. Frederick Bland. I think if the challengers expect to have a chance, they need to be, and the Royal Yacht Squadron needs to get some consultation from a few people who've been through this before and know how to negotiate strongly on behalf of the challengers as a group. Mm-hmm. Joe Holtzman thinks they'll use Tesla battery packs. You see that, Julia?
Yeah.
Fritz Mueller and zero money in the New Zealand coffers. Yeah, I don't see how the government's going to help, or even, corporate. It's a small country, 5 million people and 15 million sheep. They're just hard to compete against countries that have 200 million somethings on offer, dollars, euros, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're still going to cheer for Yannick Bestaven. Hopefully he will have a good race, and I'd love to see him two-peat, win it again. But it's an uphill battle.
And John says a reminder: the Defender should do the preliminary series.
Say again.
John,
speak up, Julia. Come on, speak up.
Oh, speak up!
You're getting tired too after an hour and 40 minutes.
I know. John Emmett said the Defender shouldn't do the preliminary series.
Correct. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed. But I don't know if the Royal Yacht Squadron is up to it. By the way, Ben Ainsley was named in that release as the team principal.
Oh, yeah.
Not Sir Ineos.
Oh.
So let's see if he's still involved or to what extent he's still involved.
Yes.
That is Sir Ineos.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
He's got other things to do, though, too.
Well, he's got other places to spend his money, probably. But we'll see. Hopefully he's still involved. Let's hope he and other billionaires get involved in a big way and support our beloved sport. And let's hope that Donald Trump makes a big deal out of the Olympics, helps us in Long Beach.
Yep.
With the our team is starting to assemble. They're finally assembling as a national sailing center, something I've been pushing for. John Sangmeister's been pushing for forever.
Yes.
But that's not the topic of our last leg today, Commodores, ladies and gentlemen. The topic is, I'm coming back to this Rolex Middle Sea Race one last time, just because I found a video that I loved. And I think you, again, as the curator and crouton-in-chief, I think you will like it as well. And it's about the challenges faced by the boat that turns out to be the top boat in the Rolex Middle Sea Race, did turn out to be the top boat from Malta. Have a nice, enjoyable look.
First day, afternoon, we got hit by a big squall. I would say we're about, 20 miles from Sicily. It was very, very violent. I've never experienced such a squall in all my life. We tore the mainsail, which we then later had to stop, which took us 3 hours to repair.
The boys did a really good job, and it held up well.
When you're on a boat like this, especially when you're trying to get dressed down below and going all over the place, you say, why do I keep doing it?
We had obviously the fleet had caught up, so most of our competitors who were over 20-30 miles behind us, so from there caught up again, the race started again, but that's what this race is all about.
Good also gaining experience from the big guys, someone like Christian also and my dad, who are patient at least and to show me around, because it's also quite a complicated boat.
But then you're out sailing, really enjoying it, and you see the camaraderie, and you see everything that's going on around you. You say, this is why you do it, right? It's just a fantastic race, a challenge, and it's always fun.
Nice video. Mm-hmm. What else can you say? Christian Ripard. Did you see that gentleman?
Yes.
When we were watching the video and the mics were off. Christian Ripard is the son, one of the sons of John Ripard, I believe. John Ripard, there's a John Ripard Jr. who is more or less not, I don't think he's quite as old as I. He's in his 60s, I suspect, or late 50s. And Christian also, John Ripard Sr. was a superb umpire and judge and dear friend. He's still alive, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And he was one, and when I got the jury together for the 92 Cup, and they were umpires, he was one of the people that we agreed on. I nominated him and the Challenger record, which was Royal Perth originally, until it was Royal Perth. And John Ripard was among the first ever. He was on that first group of umpires for the America's Cup and was a longtime America's Cup jury.
Neat.
And a good guy and a great sailor. Several of you will know of him and his lovely wife, who are just fixtures in the sailing circuit as both great sailors and a great umpire.
Terrific. John
Ripard Sr. Okay, there's a lot of comments. Jody Shields says he's been talking cheek, I'm sure. I've been told that the next AC, the power will be derived by grinding old-style winches with winch handles, and the teams have to lose at least one handle overboard per race. We'll go back and read the comments, right, Julia?
Absolutely.
Good. Good comments. I have only one here for Whiskey Tango Foxtrot because I knew the show was going to go a while, and with all the pressure I had on me to get the show put together this morning, I didn't run some of these that you all sent in, but there's always next Tuesday to do that and future shows.
Yes.
And I thought, in honor of Graham Sweeney and all the musicians, Clark Chapin and his wife and everybody else, we'd run this. Would you believe it? My neighbor was knocking on my door at 02:30 this morning. Luckily, I was still up playing my bagpipes. That came from none other than Claire Harrington.
Yes.
I got some foul ones today, some foul ones about Trump, some memes, some other things, which I will not play out of respect for everybody who don't want to hear anything more, including Julie and myself, about the presidential election this week, right?
Right.
Which gets us to the finish line. And Julia, at this stage, you always like to say,
do not deprive yourself of the comments. There are hundreds of them, and you can go through them fairly quickly. But if you don't go through them, you're going to miss some very interesting things.
Now, do you like to say anything else?
Oh, yes. Like, follow, and share.
Thank you. And go ahead. Go ahead. Quick.
I'm not always sure who I'm sharing to, and I don't know.
Share it on your own page. Click the button
I
that
know.
shares it to your own page. You don't have to share it to anybody else. Just share it on your own page so your friends see it. That's the whole point of sharing.
But I have 4,500 shares.
Well, you can just share it to your own page so all your friends can see it.
Yeah.
You don't have to share it otherwise.
Okay.
That's what the share means. Like and follow is, you like it gives us on our algorithms, both on Facebook and YouTube, and the more likes we get, the more they will say, oh, that's a popular video or a popular topic or a popular site or page or channel, and they'll start pushing it out to more people.
Which they do.
Which they do, and increasingly so they do.
Yeah.
And the sharing is pushing it, just share it to your own page.
Yeah.
And put it on your own Facebook page or wherever. And following, if you're not already following, just click that bell and the notification bell and follow us, because the more followers we get, the more, again, the algorithm in both Facebook and YouTube pushes the channel and our topic and our whole thing, our whole program up the proverbial...
Our profile improves.
It increases our profile. Thanks to all of you who support. God, that took a while.
It did.
Thanks, everybody. Those of you who support us via Patreon, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. That keeps our studio and us on the air, and we deeply appreciate all of your support and those who come on as well. And the comments. I mean, just the comments during the show also. The more comment, and people are amazed how many comments we get.
Yes.
Not only how many, but Julia, also I'm going to use a Stanford word.
Algorithm.
No, the erudition.
Oh, yes.
Of those comments.
Yes,
How
indeed.
smart and erudite our beloved Fozy are.
Absolutely.
Any Sail GP airtime today, Tom? No, we're not going to talk about Sail GP until next week, and then we'll start getting heavily into previewing that first event. And we'll maybe do a watch party for Sail GP, at least the second day. I don't think we'll do a watch party for the first day, but we shall see. Richard Gladwell is on here saying the AC document is a wolf in sheep's clothing. He's doing some more investigation and analysis. Probably time to get Richard on here to hear what he has to say about all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Clark Chapin telling us that our YouTube followers, well, we haven't worked hard on this, but we're now over 1,000. And when you're over 1,000, you can monetize the show. And the reason, with the monetization is that then they start putting ads, unless you have YouTube Premium, which I have. I watch YouTube videos all day, every day, but I don't see any ads because I have YouTube Premium. That costs not a lot, $9 or $10 a month. I can't remember what it is. But if you don't have YouTube Premium, and if we were to monetize this show now so that we start getting $50 a month or something, or $100 a month, we're never going to have the numbers that bring in huge dollars. But then you're going to see ads inserted during our shows for those of you who are watching in replay.
Yeah, and we don't want to do that.
And I'm just... Have a magical weekend to you, Mark Holland, and everybody else. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Pedro Foiling Sailor, we'll see you soon. I hope to see you over while you're here this weekend for your family affairs. Thanks to everybody who gave us audio, video, and images, or from whom I got audio, video, and images today. Julia, last thought.
I don't have one.
Graham Sweeney has one apropos our bagpipe joke. He says, I was once asked by a cop to blow into a bag. I replied, Officer, I'm drunk. You're not going to like what I play. Graham Sweeney, Stingray, Clark Chapin. Thank you, everybody, and hope to see you on Tuesday. In the meantime, have a great weekend wherever in the world you are. And if you can, go sailing. Sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao.